So Zoltan Kun is going to present us the dilemma we have with burning wood as a renewable energy, but also protecting old growth forests. Zoltan, are you ready?
Yes. Should I start my video? I'm ready. I don't know. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Should I turn on my video or just share my screen?
Both, if possible.
Okay, start video. Hi. So Zoltan Kun here, and I'm glad that I was invited to talk about a petition that basically the European Wilderness Society supports as well. And that petition is basically about stop burning wood as a renewable energy. And that creates a big threat for wilderness forests. Let me share my screen with you, and then I start the presentation, and hopefully everything will work fine. Just a sec, minimize this. Okay. So burning forest biomass is a threat to wilderness. I mean, we know that forest biomass or wood or fuel wood, there are plenty of names or terminology used for that, is the oldest form of energy for human beings. So, I mean, I burn wood at my house as well. The reason why we are really concerned currently by the policies, because the Renewable Energy Directive is basically promoting extra burning of forest biomass as a renewable energy, and that drives a lot of logging in Europe's forest, also in protected areas. So basically, I'm going to talk about why a coalition of 70 plus NGOs started a petition to remove forest biomass from the Renewable Energy Directive. Again, we are not arguing that we have to stop burning wood. We are arguing that this should not be counted as renewable energy, because in the coming 30 years, Europe would like to be carbon neutral by 2050. Burning wood is certainly not renewable. I mean, just in theory, even coal could be considered as renewable if the time scale is millions of years. And in terms of forest biomass of wood, the 30 years that we have is certainly too short to be considered as a renewable energy. So we started a petition that is called "The EU must protect forests and not burn them for energy." When I took the screenshot, we only had 3,000 signatures. I hope that it has already increased significantly, and I would like to encourage everyone who listens to my presentation to sign this petition and to promote this petition as well. So basically, the Renewable Energy Directive, RED 2, because it has already been updated, promotes harvesting forest for zero carbon biomass. So basically, currently the directive and the legislation considers that if I put a piece of wood on a fire, that means carbon zero. And I mean, with a simple logic, even my 9-year-old son says it doesn't sound correct, because we basically burn carbon. Carbon goes to the atmosphere. How this could be carbon zero carbon? There is obviously kind of calculations behind. There are other regulations like the LULUCF, IPCC, and so on and so on. But basically, we say that we should count what comes out from the smokestack. And if we count that, then burning wood is certainly not carbon zero. If you look at the facts, there was an increase of wood burning with 260% since 1990. And yeah, again, there are different terminologies: fuel wood, solid biomass, and so on and so on. But basically, again, we talk about burning wood in various forms: pellets, chips, green chips, or wood that is taken out, like in this case in the picture, from a forest directly. There is a massive increase in the market for low-value wood as well. So roughly 50% of all wood that we harvest in Europe, we burn. And that's enormous. And we should also know that the GRC has done a wood resource balance report 3 years ago, which revealed that roughly 13% of the wood that we use in Europe, within the European Union, comes from unknown sources. Unknown source, I mean, it's a nice way of putting illegal logging, I think, but it's basically, again, 1 out of 8 cubic meter or 1 ton out of 8 ton. We don't really know where it comes from. Very likely illegal. So, and partially wood burning and the Renewable Energy Directive is responsible for this. The picture that is there with my colleague from WWF Hungary, László, is taken after a wood harvest in one of the oldest forests in Hungary. It was 180 years old. It's a beech forest, and it's a protected area. It's inside the national park. It's a Natura 2000 site, and I don't really see a good reason why such a harvest should happen in this forest. What's wrong with burning forest biomass? First of all, it harms climate. So it's not low carbon. There are evidences, scientific evidences, that actually burning forest biomass emit more carbon than even burning natural gas or coal. And it takes decades or to centuries for forests to regrow and sequester the same amount of carbon that was emitted. So it's not low carbon at all. And the whole burning wood as carbon zero is encouraged by flawed accounting. Basically, as you can see on the slide, the carbon accounting rules incentivize forest bioenergy by considering biomass combustion as a zero emission technology, and it isn't. So again, the scientific evidences suggest that it is not a carbon zero technology. Another element why burning forest is not good, because it harms biodiversity, it harms forest. I mean, this picture is taken in Estonia, and the previous picture that you show or you see from Hungary, there are logging driven by biomass harvesting inside protected areas. Despite the red says that biodiverse forest shouldn't be counted as renewable, but the definition of biodiverse forest is not really clear. When I asked the Commission about whether a Natura 2000 site would be considered as biodiverse forest, they said not necessarily, because logging it can happen in Natura 2000 sites. So where is the limit? That's kind of unclear. It threatens biodiversity and climate resilience. We all know that wilderness forest, where there is no intervention, have higher resilience than managed forest. If there is logging, this resilience is harmed, and the remaining forest is going to be more sensitive to pests, diseases, natural disturbances as well. And again, it undermines the climate mitigation potential of forest, because again, scientific evidence shows that main mitigation benefit of forest derives from the size and the longevity of the ecosystem carbon stock. And the stock is very different from sequestration. The stock is what is there on the ground. And a lot of people argue that, yeah, old growth forest or wide wilderness areas, they stop sequestering carbon. That's also a lie. They keep sequestering carbon, maybe with a lower rate than young forest. But again, they keep sequestering carbon on a long run up until that they are alive. And again, the main mitigation benefit is really coming from the carbon stock. It harms also human health. Forests play an important role in safeguarding communities from the worst impact of climate change. The particles coming from wood burning actually are quite harmful for human health. And most of these combustion facilities are closer to smaller settlements. So it actually harms the more vulnerable communities. I mean, just look at this picture of the amount of wood that is being burned in this facility. I think the picture again is coming from Estonia. So it's again not good for climate because it's not carbon zero. It's not good for biodiversity because it decreases the resilience of forest and actually kills home for several animals. So, and it's also not good for human health. And the last point why it's wrong, because it's not good for energy transition. It drives away subsidies from really clean energies like wind or solar. Just in 2017, 7 billion euro was provided as a subsidy for forest burning for large facilities. Imagine that this 7 billion, and I'm talking about, I think it happened in 15 countries. So 15 EU member states provided 7 billion euro as subsidy to burn forest and subsidize the non-renewable energy system, something that is harmful for the climate, for human health, and for biodiversity. If this 7 billion would have been gone for other more true renewable energy, we could reach much better impact than with burning forests. The result of promoting forest biomass burning in the EU, you can see here that actually the carbon sink is shrinking within most of the European Union countries. Look at, for instance, Portugal. Forest became a net emitter. But again, carbon sink also decreases in Slovakia, it decreases in Austria. So it's basically in most of the countries, carbon sink is increasing. And even if you look at how these figures, and this is based on Eurostat figures, so it's the official reports of the countries. Just look at that figure here, Italy. Goes down, up. So the reporting is completely incorrect as well. Yeah, but again, if you check, for instance, Latvia, clearly goes upwards the tendency. The result of promoting forest biomass generates logging also in protected areas. The top picture is from Romania, from the Fagaras Mountains. The picture below is from Hungary, again from the Bükk National Park. And I would like to highlight National Park, Category 2 National Park, Natura 2000 site. And this logging was done 2 years ago in one of the oldest forests we had in Hungary. I mean, Hungary has been under logging pressure anyway, and we have very few natural forests left. But this oldest forest of 180 years was cut down 1.8 hectares. What was the purpose? What was the main reason? I don't think there is any logical explanation why this clear cut was happening inside the national park. And again, as I said to you, although the sustainability criteria of RED 2 says biodiverse forest or biomass coming out from biodiverse forest shouldn't be counted as renewable, but what counts biodiverse is not really clearly defined because, again, clear cut and logging is allowed in Natura 2000 sites as well. What we try to do about this, and this is the promotion of what basically I do. There is a research project coordinated by Griffith University in Australia, which has a European element. And here I'm representing the Frankfurt Zoological Society and Wild Europe. Basically, with our study, we are looking into what is the role of primary or outdoor forest in mitigating climate change. And I'm going to talk about 4 elements that we are actually doing in the framework of this project. We are actually, first of all, we are mapping the remaining primary and outdoor forest. There was one map published by Sabatini in 2018, and we are basically doing the update now. And if you don't mind, I stop here for a little bit because I try to check if I have still some time. Yes, I have to talk 4 more minutes. So we are doing the update of the mapping. We are filling the gaps that existed in the previous study, like Russia or Belarus or Ukraine. And the publication is going to come out in about 1 week or 2 weeks, also together with the methodological explanation. We are also doing bioenergy and research. So as I showed to you previously, we are looking into how much wood actually we burn in Europe. We are collecting information from Eurostat. We are also looking how much of this biomass is coming from EU and non-EU countries. Some of the interesting information, first of all, the reliability of data is a big question. Even the Eurostat data sometimes is questionable. As I said earlier, 50% of the timber that we harvest in the EU goes in the smokestack, so we burn it. roughly 13% of the wood that comes, that we use in Europe comes from unknown sources. Let's put it like in brackets, I would call it illegal. And 60% of the fuel wood is burned in the residential sector. So we cannot, everyone is responsible who burns wood to check whether it comes from legal or non-legal sources. Yeah, one more addition. Unfortunately, the EUTR, the European Timber Regulation, which is also mentioned in the RED II as a regulation that guarantees legality of the wood, doesn't really work. It cannot guarantee legality, and it has already been highlighted by even a member state that the legality and the functioning of EUTR is not really proper. We also do a carbon modeling, and just we managed to prove that actually the field data that we collected from the Carpathian shows higher carbon stock densities than the model special data. So actually the true carbon stock of old-growth forest is 1.9, 2.3 higher for beech forest and 1.5 higher for spruce forest in the Carpathian than in the default data in the IPCC. And we also develop policy recommendations. We work with several organizations. Globally, we are trying to influence the CBD and the UNFCCC or IPCC default data change. We are also trying to influence the EU climate law, the proper implementation of the biodiversity strategy, and the development of the EU forest strategy. On a national level, we are checking and we are trying to work together with national NGOs to influence the energy and climate plans and the National Forestry and Accounting Plan in order to stop subsidizing forest biomass burning. There are hopes and threats. Hopes that the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030 actually said all old-growth forest has to be protected and strictly protected. There was a positive European Parliament report on the EU role to protect Wurtz forest. But there are also threats, like 3 weeks after the Parliament approved this positive report, they approved the negative one, which basically, at least in 3 points, says exactly the opposite than the previously adopted report. There is also a dangerous council document on the EU forest strategy. And in the climate law, the net accounting of the land sector was approved, which is again allows loopholes for the member state to count their carbon neutrality. We also try to increase knowledge and awareness. So we are basically trying to link, make the link between biodiversity and the climate crisis. These two, and I think that's the main message, the biodiversity crisis and the climate crisis are inseparable. They go parallel and they are linked to each other. Science is obviously help. We are working together with ESAC and other research institutions. And again, I think this is my last slide. My main message is that the main mitigation benefit of forest derives from the size and longevity of their ecosystem carbon stock. So wilderness protection and protecting forest with non-intervention management practice is really important. Yeah. The petition, I would again encourage everyone here to sign the petition and also to actually promote the petition. It's available in 15 languages. It's supported by 70+ organizations, including the European Wilderness Society. And there is a link where it's available. So please consider signing it. That's basically, yeah, that's the link. And then we can choose the various languages from Swedish to Danish, German, Hungarian, Italian, and so on and so on. This is all available. Yeah, thanks very much. That was my presentation. And if there is any question, I'm available, and I stop sharing my screen if I can.
Okay, thank you very much, Zoltan. You can also find, we have the petition on our website, and we just posted a link to the petition in the chat, so you can find it there if you want to support it. We already have 2 questions. We're happy to take more if people are still interested to ask something. So just raise your hand or write it in the chat. And the first question was from Andre. He says the call in the petition is good, but how do you detect if wood on the market comes from forest which is planted or from old growth forest?
There is no, as I said, there is no proper check. I mean, the EUTR the European Timber Regulation should guarantee the legality. That's the first, point one. But as I said to you, unfortunately, it doesn't work. And it's Hungary, my home country, that actually raised the flag to the European Commission that something has to be done with the EUTR in order to improve the legality, because it's too easy to actually trick the whole system now. So, as I said, unfortunately, the legality and non-legality cannot really be, it's not really enforced yet. And whether it comes from plantation or non-plantation, again, the Renewable Energy Directive includes this element of biodiverse forest shouldn't be logged for energy purposes. But this is not really defined what is biodiverse forest, because again, they say the IUCN protected area definition could be considered, but we know that unfortunately the protected area categories are also not really enforced. So my answer is no, I don't think there is any real way. It's not a positive message, unfortunately. The other question, there was one, what's the current percentage of energy generated by biomass burning in the EU? If I'm correct, I think it's 45% comes from the renewable energy. In terms of the renewable energy source, 45% comes from biomass. And I think the current level of renewable energy is about 20%. So you can then do the multiplication. I would say roughly then 10%, 10% comes from biomass.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sorry.
There's another question. Ajit wants to know if mapping can be used to differentiate between plantations and old-growth forests.
Yeah, I think so, and that's why we are doing the mapping. Basically, the mapping exercise that we do is partially based on field data that is collected by primary data holders in the various countries, and then we work together with Francesco Sabatini and his colleagues to develop a system to identify the likely likely old-growth forests, the primary forests that are not, let's say, investigated on the field, and then try to extrapolate the potential existing old-growth forest. So he's also using some satellite information to detect these places. I know that in Romania there was one project that used a very efficient system to define what are the plantations, what are the secondary natural forest and natural forest. They even used satellite images from the US that were taken in the 60s that are now available online, and they provide some interesting data, because there was some debate whether there were logging in the past in certain forest plots, and then through looking at these spy satellite pictures from the US, they could actually say, no, there was no logging in the 60s, and since then there was no logging. So these areas are likely old-growth forest.
Yeah, actually,
you know which countries in the EU burn the most wood? Yeah, I mean, I have who is asked, Amber Tamulite. The EU stuff for database shows that, and I think actually, again, my home country is on the top. I should open an Excel file and have a look. But yes, we are able to track this, because the EU stuff, Eurostat, the European Union Statistical Office, has a so-called shares database. So if you go up on the Eurostat website and search for shares, then you can get the information about the renewable energy sources. If I'm correct, Hungary burns actually the most. And Hungary burns most of it in residential sector. But how reliable this data, it's a big question mark, because let me give you one example. Slovakia, for instance, where Vlado comes from, I think Vlado is around here. Officially, the biomass that is burned in Slovakia, only 3% of the biomass that is burned by the residential sector. Sorry to say, but I can't believe that. I mean, whenever I went to Slovakia, there were ovens, wood stoves, or whatever in the houses. So it's really hard to believe that the residential sector has such a small share in the wood burning in Slovakia. Is there any other question?
Another question, yeah. From Arjit, he wants to know if locals depend on wood for livelihood. What could be alternatives for them, to earn a livelihood?
Yeah, as I said, we are not arguing that we should stop burning, because we know that for poverty reasons, there is energy poverty in several countries and no solutions. Again, this whole petition is about not burning wood as a renewable source. But in the EU, at least, an alternative could be to invest a lot in energy efficiency in houses and residential houses as well. That could bring quite a big benefit. There was recently a study in Hungary that just improving the insulation of residential houses in Hungary would reduce the energy need something like 12%. But it would take about 60 years with the current speed. So certainly I think there is a need to direct subsidies into this improvement of energy efficiency.
Yeah, and I think it's important to differentiate here between the rural population that still heats their houses with wood burning and the big industry. I know, for example, from Germany, my home country, that there's barely any house heating with wood, but still the amount Germany's burning is increasing a lot. And they are also importing wood from countries like Slovakia or Romania, where it's not clear where it comes from.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the most ridiculous thing, obviously, is the bringing chips and stuff like that from the US or from North America, Brazil, and so on and so on. Let me share again my screen just very quickly, because I might have to leave soon. But there are some websites which can give you some information. For instance, this one, which is, I think, called let me go down. Biomass murder. Yeah, biomassmurder.org provides a lot of information, videos, research, and other documents. There is also another one, EU biomass case. Yes.org, that also provides a lot of information about why burning wood, especially on an industrial scale, is bad for the climate. Actually, the EU was taken to court by 7 organizations, Estonia, France, Ireland, Romania, Slovakia, and United States, because they say that the current Renewable Energy Directive is incorrect. And actually, the EU was not listening to its own scientific advisors when the RED was approved. So these 2 websites provide quite some information about this case. But again, the main point that I also would like to make, logging inside protected areas for burning them in woods, so burning them for energy, it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, doesn't make any sense, and it shouldn't happen. And unfortunately, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that notion that, of course, we have to move towards renewable energies to create a sustainable energy system, but we cannot do that on the expense of old growth forests.
Yeah, okay. or stop or any protected anyway. And there are 2 things here. We can improve energy efficiency, but eventually, I must admit that everyone should take the step to use less energy. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I think I used my time, the available half an hour. If there is any more question later on, I think the organizers have my email address, so you can always email me. And I showed you 2 websites, and I will try to respond questions later on as well.